It's just so
Hey everyone, it's Millie.
Wait, start over.
Hey everyone, it's Millie.
It's Gabby.
And welcome back
You started
to
over
another.
so fast. You're like,
And
everyone, it's
welcome
Millie.
and
Everyone,
welcome back to another week of Change by Degrees. It's episode 96, the case of the murderous Dr. Krem, part 1.
Yes, Dr. Cream. Well, okay, so wait.
What
preface.
were you? Preface what?
Well, just
I thought you were gonna read your good note.
No, I
oh,
wasn't.
this is
Did you
yeah.
want
So
me
this
to?
is a book review, book club.
Bye.
No, you go ahead. You're better
Okay.
at this.
No, I was just, you got to give credit where credit's due. We didn't come up with this.
I
stuff.
wrote this book.
Millie wrote this book. I'll tag your name at the end. Watch how I do it. Oh wait, I don't have the full. Yes, I do have the full title. The Case of the Murderous Dr. Cream: The Hunt for a Victorian Era Serial Killer by Dean Job and Millie.
I like that. Also, your book is naked and mine isn't.
I don't
so-
like book jackets.
I know. Well,
They get in the way.
I'll try to be like respectful to the book, but it's okay.
It's sitting right there. It's not like I threw it away.
Oh, I thought you did.
Why would I throw it away?
I don't know what you be doing.
It's a nice book cover. It looks good on a shelf. I just don't like reading with the book
with the
cover
book
on
cover.
because it slips around. And
Oh,
it's
well.
messed up.
So today, this is part 1 of a 2-part series. We've read up until chapter 19. Read chapter 19.
Did you start the camera?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Usually you do like right before.
I did
Okay,
right
go ahead.
before. So this is up until chapter 19, and then we'll do the other half of the book next week. And I haven't read anything past chapter 19, but we have a trader here. So
I
hopefully
did.
she doesn't speak about anything that comes after, because we're
I
getting to
won't,
the juicy middle.
Because I know where we ended in my brain. I put a bookmark there, so I won't mention anything past that. I know the last thing we read.
See.
I'm all good.
This was a lot.
Page 146.
It's been
right?
like a week. Yeah,
Okay.
146.
Okay. Cool.
So I'm actually reading, guys. I know that it's great.
Millie's getting a call.
I'm getting a call from potential spam from Sterling for the 4th time today.
They really want to talk to you.
Anyway, so yeah, this is a historical fiction of
Well, it's nonfiction.
Okay.
It's a real
This is-
story. This is real.
This is historical nonfiction, but it's written like as if it was a fiction book. And it's about a serial killer called Dr. Thomas Neil Cream.
Yeah.
I have thoughts. Incorrect
What
thoughts
did you
about-
think?
Okay, I just...
The
That's
first.
embarrassing.
No, 'cause
I
you
told
told
you
me.
because I was going to save it for the episode, but
Well,
then
this is
you
the
made me
episode.
feel...
No. I want you to say because his name is Thomas Neil Cream, but the
all
title
you
of the
get-
book is The Case of the Murderous Dr. Cream.
And they even have this little picture up here
We'll
of
get
like
into
a red bottle.
We'll get into why that's
Yeah,
there.
but I
tell
thought
us
that
what
was
you.
the thing, a cream or like an ointment.
So
And I thought this guy killed people by like putting an ointment on them. to,
she
like,
thought
burn
Dr.
them.
Cream was like a misnomer, like it was
That's
like a
the word I'm
like
misnomer.
a
Yeah,
like a
cheeky.
name given to this killer because he kills people with creams.
Cream.
But that's not.
But I found out it's not that. It's
his name is literally Cream.
strychnine.
Yeah, it's
said
the
it right.
poison he kills people with.
It's bad. It's not
Strychnine.
good. I
It's
looked
not-
it up. I looked it up and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like a horrible way to
Yeah,
die.
that's pretty bad.
So many nasty things in this book. Anyway, so right off the bat, I'm gonna say this guy's sloppy
Okay, so yeah, first impressions.
about like how he wrote it or about this man.
Either or, like about the book or
Well,
the person.
I liked the approach the guy took to the book. It has like, I mean, with any book, a slow start. Like you start with him being released from prison and the introduction of, I'm not going to say this, Bertillonage system. I don't know. The system where you measure like 11 places in a person's body off the theory that their bones aren't going to grow much more when they're an adult. So that way they could categorize criminals that were already in the system.
Which is
flawed
was
also,
very
but
interesting. That
I
whole
don't,
part.
why do you think he included that? I mean, I know that
Well, because I think it just goes to show the flaws in the system, like how this guy could have gotten away with so much. Because part of the reason is because of the type of system they were using to identify people,
Right,
was
was
so flawed.
Right.
So if they had known, and we haven't finished it, so it might come into play more later.
Right.
But like, yeah, but like you said, it does start. The book starts with like him being released from prison for a crime he committed in America, and then it follows him to London, England,
in Lambeth.
where he murdered
Proceeds
more
to,
people.
do more bad
But
things.
I think it's one of those things where it's like if maybe they had better record keeping of criminals,
They would have caught him faster.
they possibly would have caught him
Like
faster.
connect the dots.
Yeah.
And the whole time it's kind of like, I think it goes to show, although we read this and we're like, wow, the police force was sloppy, and the book talks about that also. This guy is sloppy in how he does his killing and how he does his blackmail, how he goes about his life.
It's
He's
also the
sloppy.
19th century, so it's
you
kind
have
of
to keep
like
that in mind. How they did medicine, the
very
court system, like
sloppy.
everything is just so bad. But then at the root of the issue, there's things that still happen today when we talk about shows you watch where people don't communicate to each other.
Yeah.
And you're like, how did they miss this?
Yeah.
It still happens in 2022. So
which is pretty crazy.
it's just on a whole other degree. But no, I appreciated the style of writing because it starts, he's getting released from America. He goes to Lambeth and he's very, colorful in his language about this like hellhole that Lambeth is, like really bad.
It's like a really bad neighborhood of London is Lambeth.
Like disgusting. Yeah. Think about like an inner city that's just nasty. There's prostitutes everywhere. That's a really big part, which once again is a thing we've seen with other cases about how women just get shafted.
Well, it's kind of like this. I like the point that also the author is a male, but that he kind of makes, and this still happens today, where he doesn't use this phrase explicitly, but he makes the point that like, because Cream is murdering prostitutes and sex workers, which
or women who come in for abortions.
Women who come in for abortions. They go to a doctor to get an abortion. Abortion was illegal at the time. So I don't know about in London, but in America it was. So when he starts killing people in Canada, that he's seeing women who want an abortion the illegal way because there was no legal way to do it. So he's also killing them or giving them poison or whatever. But I do like the fact that this author really recognizes that, like, and even this still, my God, sorry, they're doing work all around my apartment, and it's just like
it's like a construction zone right now.
Next door to me, the other side of me, everyone's drilling. It's really good. So if you hear any of that, I'm so sorry. But because I'm hearing it and I hate it. So
and she really is bothered.
But that like a lot of times, and this still happens today, where sex workers and prostitutes are considered quote unquote. A lot of times in the true community, they'll say less dead than other women,
or like unpeople, like just
they're just so even though they have all these prostitutes that are being killed and sex workers that are being killed, they're just considered to be less dead than another woman of high class or a better society kind of thing. So I think the author does a good job of really like driving home the fact that like this was not good. Like the only reason why half these investigations into these women's deaths weren't done correctly is because they were written off because, oh, well, they're just a sex worker. Of course they died. Right. Or like, oh, well, she had a baby out of wedlock. So she went to try to go get an abortion. Of course she died.
Happened to her.
Of course it happened. And it's like, well, no, maybe it happened because
there's somebody
your society is horrible and you need to provide better care for women and you need to like take care of women regardless of their occupation.
Right.
And you also need to like, well, why is the woman a sex worker in the first place? It's not for fun, dude. Probably because she can't get out of like the gutter, like, so it's like the 19th century was just really strange.
So it painted like a very vivid picture. And this is where Dr. Cream found himself. And it was so nasty. And another thing we discussed is how he also brings up a point of how, stories such as, Holmes and Dr. Watson were becoming really more popular. And I was like, I had never thought about that. And again, that's something that can even be put into play now because you have all these like, CSI.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, it must be really easy. And it's easy to make fun of them. But basically in this time, those types of stories were becoming more popular and people would be making fun of the police force or detectives. They're like, Dr. Watson could run circles around you and figure out whatever these murders are. And you can't even find this one guy who's killing
people would be and actually I think they I can't remember if this is in the part I read or
good job, dude.
I don't know. I won't say it. I'm not sure. It was one of the professors that Cream probably ran into when he was in school.
I think that was in
trying to get his license or whatever to be a doctor.
Yeah,
it's not like a plot spoiler or whatever. But the author makes the point that like one of the professors that Cream probably ran into when he was getting his medical license, because he was a doctor, like he earned his whatever degree in whatever they call it in the 19th century. One of the professors he ran into probably at some point was the same professor / doctor that Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, based Sherlock Holmes off of. Yeah. So it's like the circle of influence is like super, super like close knit, and this was like you were saying, like the rise of sensationalism with like, and I find this stuff interesting because literature and stuff, but like just the rise of like sensationalism, and people were reading. He brought up, besides Arthur Conan Doyle and like Sherlock Holmes, people loved Sherlock Holmes in the 19th century. Wilkie Collins, who I read in college, he was friends with Charles Dickens. So if you think of Charles Dickens, kind of akin to that, but he wrote mysteries. And like The Lady in White, I think was the book called, The Moonstone. Like he wrote all this. So people are writing these like sensationalized stories about murder and mystery. And like you said, people are reading it and being like, well, Sherlock Holmes could solve this.
Right,
Like
right,
I
gotcha.
could, and it's the same thing as like I was joking with my friend the other day that she's like really into Grey's Anatomy, and she's like, I could probably save someone's life. Like I've watched so much Grey's Anatomy, I know so much about the like medical practices. Like I don't know all the terms, but I could probably save someone's life. Like I know I've watched so much Grey's Anatomy. It's like the same
I
thing
agree with
except
your friend.
19th century.
Right.
Like
But
you know,
to the point where it becomes problematic.
yeah, what people think they're like, how are the police not solving
Right.
this? Like, I would have this. I read a lot of
Right.
Sherlock Holmes. Like, I read a lot of Wilkie Collins. Like, I could totally have this solved. Like, because it was just a rise of people, kind of the rise of like true crime, like we know it today. Like, you know, we talked about true crime today, like Lambeth, it began in Lambeth, like just yeah. And then you also had Jack the Ripper a few years prior to this as well.
You actually, this is not a spoiler, but basically we haven't read it, but he eventually does get caught. I think. I hope.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah.
Well,
because he's kind of in prison right now.
Yeah,
He's just
technically,
waiting trial.
yes. And this guy has gone to go find out his
past
dirty
and
secrets.
stuff. Yeah,
but that when he went to go bye, like Thomas DeMahie, he made allegedly a statement that he was Jack the Ripper, but people discount that because he was actually in jail when Jack the Ripper was doing his killings. But it's so funny because again, with that sensationalism, you have killers coming out just for the popularity about it,
or like copycat
and copycat killers and stuff like that. And I was like, that's really interesting. So he's like interweaving these themes while telling the story. And we also made a point that it's nice he doesn't go in chronological order. Like you start with him coming out of, and I wrote down the Illinois State Penitentiary. That's where he was. And then he goes to Lambeth. But actually when they catch him, because he's sloppy, finally the police got their act together.
He's pretty sloppy.
They go back in time to his childhood, like a little bit earlier, like before,
like how he kind of became this person, as well as like how he was able to get away with it for so long. Because like one of the inspectors in London travels to Canada to kind of like find out about his past and stuff. So
he was sent, right? Because when they have him, they're like, wait, we need to see if he's killed any other women, where he got, because again, they found out, for example, he graduated from McGill University in Montreal, graduated in 1976 with a thesis, and I found this so hilarious because it was a problematic student in chloroform. Yeah,
the thesis he wrote to graduate was on chloroform, which is he used quite often to incapacitate his victims and then kill them if they fought back. I think a lot of times he would use that. But there was some comment that they were like, they said something like, you know, they might have needed to do a little bit more. Maybe they would have done more research on a certain death that occurred if they had known that the person that they suspected had a whole thesis on chloroform, and this woman was killed with chloroform.
Right.
Because you can kill someone with chloroform if you use enough of it.
Right.
But yeah, so it's just like, really like he's not slick at all. Like he's pretty blatant. It's just like if he was doing this in the 21st century, he'd probably be caught pretty quickly. But because the 19th century, obviously there's no cameras, there's no cellular data, there's nothing like.
And he would talk to people. He was very full of himself. He was addicted to opium.
People said that he was like a dick. Like he was, no one, even men in the 19th
were like,
century.
wait, you're disgusting. He was a womanizer. He spoke so poorly of women,
which isn't a surprise,
whether sexually or just in general. Although he got with a lot of them.
Yeah. Like you know, it's pretty bad when a 19th century man who barely regards women as anything other than property.
He was like, wait.
Is like when you know it's bad when a 19th century man is actually, like, you're disrespectful to women.
It's like when he finally got back to his family and they were like, how can we get rid of him? We'll send you over here. That's like,
you know, when your whole family is like, we don't want you
here.
Like he literally just got out of prison in America and they were like, let's send you to London. Like we don't need you here.
And that's basically what happened. So it just paints this picture of like a guy who would be just drugged, speaking so nastily.
He was it was like an alcoholic. He was addicted to opium. He made a point to say that.
Very full of himself.
In my mind, I'm like, yeah, a lot of people were addicted to opium.
Yeah, and he was like, for my headaches, I'll take some opium for my headaches.
I mean, a lot of times doctors would prescribe these hardcore drugs like cocaine, and
you'll feel better.
You'll feel better.
Medicine has come a long way.
So. Yeah. Just so it was pretty common. I mean, people didn't know the long-term effects of these drugs, but he was taking opium to like the nth degree, so much so that people were like, "Yo, you need to stop taking opium."
And mind you, a lot of accounts, it's not just, wow, this guy was not a great man, but more like this guy wasn't right in his head.
Right. Yeah. People thought that they were like, okay, he's
He
a
has an
screwball,
issue.
dude. Like, yeah, he's like not right.
Something's not working.
Yeah.
But that's what I think of the book. I was surprised that you kind of enjoyed it because we read the prologue and he was like, this is
the prologue
completely
was funny.
real.
It was
'cause
like
there's
a
lot of
note to
quotations.
readers. The little note to readers was like, the author's like, this is all real. Like everything in
Believe it.
quotes, it's
I've taken.
word for word. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what a quote is. But
Well, again, I said for the retards of the world. It's kind of helpful
I
to point that
guess.
out. That's not like dialogue he's writing in for the characters.
I know, but
when
half
there's
the
quotes,
stuff,
it's like whether it's written on an article or by an eyewitness account that these words were spoken.
I'm like, yeah, dude, I get that
This
because
is
you have
real
like
life.
100 pages of references in the back of like all your
This guy did his
citations.
research.
He did,
I appreciate
which is
it.
good to know.
And it's like if you were interested in the rise of serial killers in London at this time, like this is a great way to ingest all that information because
Yeah,
it's in
dude.
story form.
Yeah, it is. It reminds me of
And it has these themes also on top of that.
yeah, it reminds me of and he has a cast of characters in the back, which is also very helpful because
There's a lot.
So
I
many
mean,
people.
when I was, because a lot of the chapters are the name of women that he ends up killing or not killing. Finally, there was one that I was like,
there was
sis, you're
someone who
smart for
survived.
once,
yeah,
dude. But it's a lot of like names to keep track of, whether it's detectives, whether it's false names that Cream was blackmailing with.
so stupid with
It's
the
just
blackmailing.
dude, I read that again just to
He's
refresh.
such an
I was like, this is
idiot.
messy, but yeah,
He's
it's
so
such an
stupid.
idiot.
There's
So-
something in the news section, the second
that you're
section,
like-
that he tries to blackmail. It's just it's really funny. It's very funny, and I'm like, this guy's such an idiot. But no one catches on, and they're like, okay,
Yeah, well, that's
like he gets caught
them
in the
finally-
blackmail, and they're just kind of like, well, where did this come from? And he's like on trial, and he's like and he's
he's
a
still trying to-
suspect.
right,
He wasn't
right,
arrested; he was a suspect, and he testified. And they kind of in court kind of were like, this doesn't make sense. Blah blah blah. The blackmailing doesn't make sense. They had the person come in who he was blackmailing, and he was like, I don't know what this letter is talking about. I don't know who this came from. Whatever.
I'm so dead.
And they kind of trace it back to like the only person it could have been is Cream, but they still are just kind of like, I don't know, yeah. And he just gets away with it and he leaves.
Idiot.
And he leaves Canada
just-
and goes to Chicago. So
It's like so deeply problematic. So let's go in order from all these ladies, if
Okay.
I remember. Like the first one is Ellen Donworth, which is actually a big deal because after the double murder, the guy who worked the double murder
Yeah.
also worked hers. And I think they chalked hers up to suicide. Isn't that great?
that was my favorite part. My
Is that the
favorite
one with
this
just
was
the,
the
way
one
that they justified the way these women
I thought
died.
this was the one where they said she had bad alcohol. She had
Well-
alcohol poisoning.
Okay, yeah, because
Which
then
I'm
Matilda's
like-
the next one.
Yeah, so was it this lady who the first victim they found?
And maybe I read
She-
suicide and I just wrote it down.
Well, no, I think they chalked it up to that.
asked to.
She
from alcohol.
drank too much and she killed herself.
And
on
mind you, then a
purpose.
few days later, they were like, that doesn't make any sense, but let's just keep it like that.
Yeah, they just kept it because
It made no
they said
sense.
this is how sloppy it is. And once again, it's this less dead concept with sex workers. But and this still happens. This still happens today when they find whenever they're doing an investigation and they find a woman or a Jane Doe and they're like, well, let's look into her past and they see she has a record or she's a sex worker. They're like, oh, well, and the case just slugs along. Like it's just so slow because it's just they're like, well, no one's really looking for her. Or, well, what did she think was going to happen kind of stuff. But this lady, this was like my favorite. This is when I texted you when I had started reading and I was like,
Well, then I texted you because I was like, there's no way.
and I was like, I need you to read this book. Like it is insanity. I love the 19th century for this reason because of how absolute you're like, that can't be real. And like it is. This lady, she was poisoned. And I think a witness, one of her housemates or something had said like, she's like turning purple. Like she's
Right.
choking. She can't breathe. She's literally has like these
Like,
blotchy
alcohol doesn't
purple
do
like
that. blemishes
on her skin. And then she just like keels over and dies. And the witness or her friend or whoever she was living with is telling police this and the doctors like, this is, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, like a
but
doctor
she's
came
really
to
sick.
like
Yeah. And they're just like, well, I think she had some bad alcohol. Must be alcohol poisoning.
Bad
and she drank
alcohol.
so much to kill herself. And I'm like, I don't think. And also her
Bad
insides were
alcohol.
just like destroyed because I think they
yeah, it blows
did an
your
autopsy.
insides up.
and her stomach was like destroyed. And they were just
Bad
like
alcohol.
bad alcohol. And they even lied on the report because
They
I think
did?
she was the lady that the coroner was supposed to come out,
Mm-hmm.
but he was busy with somebody else.
Okay, so some other
Something
brony.
whatever was happening. So he sent somebody else to go out there. Some other like lackey. So this lackey guy comes out because the head coroner couldn't. But they put on the report that the head coroner did come out and did see the body and did determine
Which
this
just,
was
like-
suicide. So they just, because they didn't feel like doing paperwork and having a
Which,
second
once
opinion.
again, I feel like still happens to this day.
Probably. They were just like, this is a lot of paperwork.
We've seen in history that this causes major problems, and so many more women ended up dead. So just do the paperwork.
If you did the paperwork on the first chick,
It's like both.
you probably would not have had a problem with the rest.
All
Or
those.
maybe you would have
Would
only
have
had like
figured it
3
out
dead
a
instead of like
little.
1 billion. Which is still too much. 3 is too much. But like, you know what I mean? So I'm just like...
So it was
because-
bad alcohol and bad paperwork, the non-existence.
And
of
like, even
paperwork.
after like autopsying this chick, they were like, I'm going to go with bad alcohol.
she was
and-
feeling a little poorly, a little too
Yeah.
depressed, and just
And they were like, yeah,
Drank
she
too much.
killed herself. And everyone was like, why? And they were like, well, you know,
she's a woman.
she's a woman.
Crazy.
She's a sex worker.
Half a woman, dude.
So she, you know.
That's the first one. And mind you, it's still important because there's so many and then it gets lost in the sauce. But since one of the people who were working on this case works one of the later ones, and he's like, wait, these ladies are dying the same way.
Yeah, someone finally
He was
caught
like,
on and was
"Wait."
like, I have a theory, guys.
So Ellen is important. The next one was Matilda Clover. And the excuse for this was heart failure.
Heart failure, yeah.
Which is
Because when my heart fails, I turn
Blow up
into
inside.
my stomach
It's
implodes,
just-
dude.
like, now again, I was like trying to figure out how to say strychnine.
Strychnine.
Strychnine. And I looked it up. I'm like, dude, people who die from that, like their bodies contort.
It's poison,
It's-
dog.
like,
Yeah, well, that was
it
the
is
other thing.
one of the worst ways you can die. It is very obvious.
They went into
you don't look
the author goes
you had a heart
into
failure.
symptoms of being poisoned by strychnine, which are horrifying.
horrible.
That you go into muscle spasms and you
Mhm.
can't really control your nervous
And you think
system.
you're fine for like a minute or two, and you go back into spasms. You can throw up. You
Yeah,
literally
and
like
a lot of these women,
implode.
it lasted for like a whole night. Like
Mhm.
it would last like
Until you
12
pass away.
hours until you die, but or pass out or whatever. But yeah, you'd be throwing up, and the muscles you pretty much lose control of your nervous system. So like you would have muscle spasms and convulsions, so
Mhm.
much so that one lady he described she was arching off, like she was laying on
Yeah.
her back, but she was arching off the bed, so she was just on her head because
you
she
imagine doing
couldn't-
like a glue bridge,
or
but
like a bridge,
like
yeah.
a bridge. Imagine
Because
doing a
she
bridge,
just
but you
couldn't-
can't control
and
it.
her face was contorted into like this
Mhm.
really like this grimace because she just can't control like any of her muscles.
Right.
And so
And
I'm
it's
like,
incredibly painful.
but these people are like alcohol poisoning, heart
Heart
failure.
failure.
She's a sex worker.
I want you to just let's get on this theme because it continues.
It goes on and on and on.
And then the smart chick, and I remember texting Gabby. I'm like, thank goodness,
Yeah.
Louisa Harvey.
yes,
Because
come on, Louisa. Come on.
Cream was a ladies' man. He thought he could get with Louisa. They like hook up. I think she's a sex worker, right?
I think
I
so.
have to look again at the
I
chapter.
think so because
All
she
I
was
remember is that she
standing
wasn't dumb
outside
enough.
the theater
Yes.
that he came out
Yeah,
of.
yeah. And they have
'Cause
this
he would give
conversation, and he
pills.
has these pills, which were like creepy looking pills. Like imagine like a narrow white pill.
Yeah,
apparently,
like,
is
and
how
these
it
are
would
like
be administered.
strychnine.
And he'd be like,
pills.
"You have what was it that she had like a blemish on her face,
She literally had like
a pimple, a zit?" And he's like, "I'm gonna help you with that zit."
She was like, "What?"
And she thought the pill looked weird, and she literally tossed it into the water because they were like, "What?"
She was yeah.
She's
He like
I don't know about that.
he left. He was like, all right, you take that now. And
I'll see
you take
I'll
that.
pick you up because they had planned a date later,
Yeah, I
he's
think
like,
he gets
"I'll see-"
off on the fact that like they're not going to show up because he knows what happened to them, kind
which
of
is
thing.
so disgusting.
Yeah, it's just he's
but he's like, "You have this
disgusting,
zit
but
on your face so that you're ready for the date
he's
tonight.
like, take
this
that
pill.
Or I think
I'll
it was
see
the
you
next
later.
night or whatever. But
Uh-huh.
he was supposed to meet her later,
Right?
and he was like, "You take that now." And
I like how
I just
you're
imagine he's
impersonating
just
him.
like, "Now you
He looks so.
take that, little girl." And so he walked away, and she was just like, "Yeah, f this dude," and like tossed it into the river and went on about her business. And then she showed up the next night, like
Was
she
it the
had
next night?
planned, and he didn't show up. And she was like, "That's weird. It's almost as if he didn't expect me to be here."
Oh, you're right.
And I was like,
thinking about-
"Louisa, you smart
Which once
girl."
again, I'm just like, they think women are stupid and there's no communication. So I'm like, this weird man really tried to offer me something and then didn't show up for our date.
as if he didn't expect her to be there
But
because he
what's
didn't because he expected her to be dead.
What's hilarious is that they meet up again, and
They
Sis
do.
is like,
Yeah.
"Hey, you never showed up for our date."
And she
And-
said that, or well, the narrator, I don't know who, if this
Mhm.
was a direct clip, but like said his face was so white, like he had seen a ghost. And Louisa was
And he
like,
left.
and
He
left
ran away.
because he was like, "Holy crap, this chick's
This-
haunting me." But she was
I'm so
alive. This was not her ghost.
So Louisa is the main character of
Louisa's
this
the main
whole
character
book. We've
of-
already been introduced,
Yeah.
and I can't wait to hear how this story ends. Watch her end up dead, but I don't think so.
Maybe she'll come back and testify.
And so it's just around Are you like spoiling it for me?
No, I'm just
Oh,
saying.
okay.
I'm
I
just
hope
that
she
would be
does.
really
I
cool.
hope she does.
Yeah.
But then after a few of these murders, we start going into the little blackmail ring.
I
Which
love it.
cracks me up
And for
so
what?
much.
I don't understand why he's doing this.
I think
like,
he gets the idea because
he's such an idiot.
With the Donworth one, the first lady in Lambeth, some guy called William Slater is the one who is the main suspect. And then I think Cream gets in his head, I can be so smart right now and say that other people killed these ladies.
He's such
and
a
and it not be
disgusting
me.
little goblin.
Um,
Like he's so lame
he's
sauce.
really nasty.
He's lame sauce. Boo. Cream. I just don't like him.
so tickled. So he's like, this Slater guy was suspected for this murder. So let me
He's so
let me email.
stupid. Let me email.
At 1:30, let me email these people and say that these other people said it. Email would have been better, but this man's handwriting is what got him.
Dude, the handwriting sample.
Is what
he
got him.
offered it. They were like, we need a handwriting sample from you. And he was like, okay. It's like, so stupid. Because they were like, the cops, what's it suggested? The cops suspected him, they suspected him of the murders, but they didn't have anything on that.
Clueless.
So they were like, well, they suspected him of the murders, but they didn't have any evidence.
They have nothing.
So they were like, well, let's at least get him on the blackmailing. We can at least get him on that. Let's arrest him on that. So they asked him for a handwriting sample. And he was like, okay, to compare to the blackmail letters. And he wrote it like, the same. I'm like, you can't even use your other hand or something to like, instead of using your right hand, write with your left to make it like, look a little different.
Oops. Maybe he had too much opium that day.
Yeah, maybe he was high or something and he just wasn't thinking. But he like willingly gave up this handwriting sample and he wasn't acting weird about it at all or suspicious. And they went back and looked at his handwriting sample with the note and they were like, this guy's such an idiot. So they went and arrested him because they're like, obviously it's you. Like, didn't even try to change the little loop on your R or anything.
He did nothing.
Nothing. He didn't try.
So it's the handwriting that got him.
Maybe he's like, I'd rather go down for
once
that.
Once again, it's just like the police don't even have to be super smart. But they just had nothing because the doctors also were dumb. So it's just everybody here is just not smart. They're not us, is basically what it
we would have
down
had this solved, okay?
100%.
100%.
So William Slater was a suspect. And of course, no one cares about these women. So they're like, actually, you didn't do it, sir. Go be free. And Cream is like, wait. There's this guy, Frederick Smith, and he accuses him and proceeds to like do a whole other ring of all the other ladies. He decides to email like the wives of these guys and just a whole bunch of random
email.
I said email?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was here for it though.
Email.
He's emailing everybody.
He's emailing everybody. With all these different Gmail, Hotmail, Outlook, whatever.
Not Hotmail.
Hotmail.
Cream, he would use Hotmail.
He would use Hotmail.
He's such an idiot. He'd use Yahoo.
Yahoo.com.
Yeah, Yahoo.com.
Just like my potential spam really wants
Cream.
to. That's Cream right there. His soul. But yeah, so he starts his blackmail ring. And eventually that's what gets him in trouble.
Which is hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Such an idiot.
And then in the first part of the book, we also have to discuss this because they start going into it when they go back, which was his first wife.
Yeah.
I think you should cover this.
This chick, what's her name? Flora?
Yes, I have it. It's called Flora Brooks.
Okay.
Why don't you discuss this?
Literally?
Because this took me out.
This chick, I'm like, I want better for Flora, okay? But
Flora
Flora
did not have
Eliza
better.
Brooks. She was from
Flora
Waterloo,
Brooks.
Quebec. So he meets this chick. I don't know if she was high society, but she was middle class or high class. I think upper class maybe. In Quebec, and he meets this chick in the 1870s, and he's like, "Ooh, I like that." Okay, Flora. I'm like, Flora, girl, you can do so much better, Flora. You come from a good family. Like, please do better. So she's young too. I think they're both young. Yeah. He's maybe in his like mid 20s, I think, at this point, because in his late 20s he goes to,
and they get engaged.
Yeah, so they get engaged. And no, before they get engaged.
I thought it was after they got engaged.
Maybe it's after they got engaged.
Yeah, because she thought she was gonna marry him.
Yeah,
that's
because
why
they're
they ended up in
engaged.
this situation.
So you assume that because you're engaged, you're probably gonna get married.
Right.
That's the obviously next
the
step.
Usual line of thought.
So, but she's an idiot for thinking that. To thinking just
that's
because they're engaged.
That's the only mistake Flora made.
It's the only mistake Flora made. Thinking that because they're engaged, you're gonna get married. What an idiot. And so she gets pregnant because, of course, he like schmoozes and is like, "You're the only one for me, Flora." And so
gag.
And so she gets pregnant, and her dad finds out and is like, oh, you're gonna marry her. Like, we're gonna do a shotgun wedding like ASAP, so no one knows that she was
This is
pregnant out of
happening.
wedlock or whatever. So
This
but
makes me so
before
upset. This makes me
so okay, so all this happens. He's like, you're
Yes.
gonna marry my daughter, blah 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 blah. Which why that needed to be said, because they're engaged, you know, whatever.
It's just Cream had other things in mind.
Cream, yeah, he had a lot of side hustles and things called killing and blackmailing. So in medical school, he was still in school, I think.
School.
But so then Flora gets like super ill, like really really sick, like bedridden, super sick. They never attributed this to Cream, but
okay,
but the family's kind of like, what? But like pretty much what they think happened, what the family is under the impression that happened.
Escape? He tried to escape once, and the dad brought him back and said, no.
Yeah, because that's when Flora was sick.
Okay.
And so they went and were like, where's Thomas Cream? And they brought him back because they were like, Flora's like gonna kick the bucket, dude. Like, she's circling the drain. And so like he was like,
you're horrible.
So you know, Cream. This is Cream.
He's like, wait, I'm not interested in this anymore.
I'm the only reason why I'm saying stuff like this is because I have to get into the mind of Cream. That's the only reason.
Okay.
So
well,
I don't
want
to. It's. Let me tell you about the mind of Cream.
Dark
it's a dump. It's a dumpster fire in here.
It's also super empty.
Too much opium.
Here's my
dude.
handwriting.
Here's my handwriting. The only thing in his mind is the handwriting sample. It's the only thing. It's the only thing. Anyway, so dude. Yeah, the dad is like, dude, Flora's gonna kick the bucket. And so
you should have told the story.
I'm telling it like I tell it.
My daughter's about to kick it, dog.
And Cream is like, Cream's such an idiot. He has to pretend like he doesn't know. He's like, oh crap. So he comes back from wherever the heck he was, and in Quebec, and so Flora recovers. I'm like, she survives. But what the family was under the impression is that she tried to have an abortion.
That he did.
But I think they just thought it was a doctor. They didn't know it was Cream.
He tried.
But Cream
unpregnant.
had given her whatever pill. I don't know if it was strychnine. It could have been something else to try to perform an abortion, which a lot of times instead of you take something instead of like going the other way. So that obviously didn't work. I think the baby, she still had the baby. Did she or not? Did she not have the baby? Was she still pregnant? Or did it actually work?
She had the baby. I don't think Cream has a kid.
Cream no, you're right. So the abortion did work. Okay.
Yeah, I think it worked. It's just
but
she got super sick.
Yeah, she just got super sick. So she survived, but they still went through the wedding. The wedding was so awkward.
Yeah.
Cream came back and it was literally in their living room, like Flora's parents' living room, with like Cream. Like Flora was so not
intimate elopement.
Yeah, she was so weak that she couldn't even stand. So she sat in an armchair to get married. And like it was really
Cream
uncomfortable.
is a part of this. He's like so not in it.
Yeah, he's just like standing there like crap. And so he and Flora get married in this really awkward living room wedding with Flora like on her deathbed still. And then he's like, after the wedding, because they sign all this paperwork, he signs something that says he would only get the money. He would get $10,000 if
that's all
she died under. Was it under non-suspicious circumstances, like a natural death, I think. So as soon as this wedding happens,
he's out.
The next day, he's like, I gotta go.
Bye.
So he goes to quote unquote medical school in London. And so he pieces out and they never see him again.
And mind you, she eventually does, like she got better from the original abortion, but I think she died of tuberculosis afterwards.
Yeah. So he gets money.
And he literally is talking to her dad and being like, I need that money.
No. Well, yes, that happened. But
and it was a back and forth until eventually the dad was like, you know what? Whatever.
This is what's interesting too. Yeah, her dad was like, dude, you could tell her dad like hated Cream. Considering he had to like go drag him from the depths of hell to come back and marry his daughter.
Mind you, people also, the reason, I mean, again, with abortion, she didn't die, but people think possibly the final death he might have had, I haven't read the whole book, had something to do with it.
Because they chopped it up to tuberculosis, which was...
Him needing money. He needed money.
Yeah.
He was broke. He didn't know how to manage money.
Yeah, because they chopped it up to tuberculosis.
And that's what's actually written, like, when I looked at a separate source. People think it's, tuberculosis, but...
Because tuberculosis was just coming on the scene at this point, I think. It was called tuberculosis, but blah, blah, blah. But they found out, that's right, they found out later... They were like, oh, she has tuberculosis. She's getting ill again. But they then figured out that Cream had been sending her medicine from London.
Which is like...
So he's So they
now, mind you, it's two things. He needed money, and Flora was cramping his game in London.
Yeah,
he tried to court other ladies,
but they were like, "Oh,
and
you're
eventually
married?"
they found out that he was married, and his time to get it in no longer happened.
Yeah.
So he needed to get rid of Flora, you know.
So yeah, that was really cramping his style because some women didn't care that he was married and other ones did. So he was like,
"Wait, I need
first
to kind
of all,
get free."
Yeah, he's like, I need to get free from this marriage so I can like do my thing and be a hustler and be like a big G, big baller shot caller
in Lambeth.
Okay, but then he also was like, but I need the money, so I need it to look like a natural death. So I think on her official cause of death, it was listed as tuberculosis because they didn't know much about tuberculosis.
I still think Cream's behind it.
Yeah, they didn't know much about tuberculosis at the time, so I think they were like, it must be tuberculosis. We don't know these symptoms. But really, they found out later that he'd been sending her medicine. And the doctor that was treating Flora said, quote, never saw any of the medicine Cream had sent his wife, but he strongly suspected him of foul play, the doctor did. So, like, that's pretty blatant. Like, you don't just accuse someone of like, I think he was poisoning his wife from a distant land.
And mind you, so I read this and I'm like, okay, so this guy's just going to be pimping. Like, he's going to pay some ladies for some company during the night and nothing more than that. He proceeds to get married again.
Dude.
To Laura Sabatini, who is like 20 years he's 20 years her senior.
Yeah.
That age gap. And she was like, well, I mean, he's a doctor, so I guess I'll have a decent life.
It's like,
he looked
first of all, like, how do you get these women?
Have this high,
yeah, there's pictures of him.
Like, he was bald.
Did you see his medical student pictures? Or was that in the section I read?
I think.
But this guy looks... But people did say, and it's funny looking at the pictures, you're like, yeah, he does. He had...
The mustache.
The mustache and the... he looks like a 19th century gentleman, he does. Except for the crazed look in his eye. His eyes, one of his eyes was like the opposite of a lazy eye. I don't remember what he called it, but it turned inward slightly.
Oh, really?
So he was a little bit cross-eyed, is what they described in like the first part of the book.
But the ladies were dying.
They liked that cross-eyed look, dude. That tomcat look.
It's kind of upsetting. I mean, his eyes look a little
cross-eyed, see? They're a little unfocused, a little bit like, can you cross your eyes?
Yeah.
Oh, you did like one. That's how Cream looked, dude. Imagine this is the last face you see. Like,
I'd be upset, dude.
I'd be so upset. I'd be like, oh, dang it.
So he gets married again.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that's going to end because we have to continue this backstory. But one of the nastiest things, other than him actually murdering women.
Yeah, what's the nastiest
thing? The nastiest thing for me is this new career that gentlemen such as Dr. Stevenson, I believe is the name. Yeah, Dr. Stevenson. Because basically they go to this double murder that happens with Alice Marsh and Emma Shrivel. Mm-hmm. And they properly biopsy the bodies. Biopsy, however you would call that.
Like an autopsy.
Autopsy, whatever. And there was a career where you would take these body parts and put them in certain nasty acids and stuff and see how they react to see
sounded like you
how
said asses. Put them in nasty asses. It just made me laugh.
Acids and other nasty things to see how they were poisoned. If it was strychnine, I will get it.
You got it.
And more than just that, these doctors or scientists like Dr. Stevenson would actually eat this. Try a tiny piece of this to be like,
so
this definitely has to be this poison because it only tastes like this. You could not pay me enough money.
Also, this guy's like a genius, dude.
Yeah.
He can determine, like, because of him, we probably know so many different poisons. Because of him, this case
was like going in the right direction.
Like, he would taste different poison and be like, oh, that's this, that's this, that's that. And because of that, he was able to determine what these women were killed from. Like, he was able to taste what was in their stomach and be like, yeah, that's strychnine. Like, that's insanity.
What's in their stomach.
It's disgusting, but I love it. I love that disgusting nastiness. I just want to dig into that. Let's unpack this. It's so interesting. You have to admit, that's pretty badass.
It blows my mind. I'm like,
for this doctor, this 19th century guy being like,
4 more murders.
Tasty.
And then,
I know what that is, strychnine, dude. Or that's anthrax, and that's whatever. Like, dude, that's pretty.
It honestly, because I have 4 more murders, and then detectives are getting nowhere. Cream is riding into the wee hours of the night.
Dude, what an idiot. I can't even, like, fathom right now.
So he thought that would help him. Like,
he was like, I got this.
He kind of did it to himself in a sense.
He did.
Even though the He did it to
It's a
himself.
handwriting sample.
And eventually with these two ladies, they're like, wait, everybody, wait. One of the detectives that were there for Donworth was like, I think this might all be connected.
Yeah, it took him like 500 years to be like, wait, you guys.
And he's like, let's actually properly, rather than saying they had heart failure or suicide or alcohol overdose or kill themselves, whatever it is. Instead of that, let's see if, how they died. And they're like, oh, it could be strychnine. Let's bring one of these masters. Okay, Dr. Stevenson had it
Master
going.
of poison. That's what I would want my
like, it would be
title
like
to
a whole process of like weeks because it would have to sit in this bile or whatever, and he'd have to take the body parts out and be like, let me taste this, let me taste that, let me get a little piece of
It's
this.
a buffet,
and he
dude.
was like, I can tell you 100% for sure this is it. And then the detectives were like, wow, really? Because we're onto this.
Dude.
Meanwhile, Cream's in his bedroom like, let me write to
Stupid
this.
idiot.
Like,
yeah, that's...
Because again, he also was a doctor. He wasn't even faking it.
No, he was a doctor.
He was a doctor.
He had a medical
ended up in
license.
jail, and he tried to restart in Lambeth, his professional career, and he would make visits, whether it was to perform abortions or if a lady was feeling sick, and he'd be like, here, you feel this, take that, and then exit. I remember reading, actually, I liked how that was written, where there was a guy who saw actually him leaving one of his patients, and he was like, oh my goodness, I saw the guy, I just don't know. It didn't fit the description or anything. And I'm just like, that blows my mind because that lady was dead that night.
Yeah.
And so he would make visits. And
he wasn't
give people,
subtle
like,
about it.
He was
wasn't
a doctor.
subtle.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, and because it's this section of the city with these women that nobody cares about, they'd be like, okay, well, yeah, a doctor saw him. The doctor must be good. The doctor's good because he's, serving these ladies of the city or whatever.
Yeah. And a lot of times the women who wanted abortions wouldn't tell anybody because they didn't want anyone to know they even were pregnant. So of course they're not going to tell anybody they're getting an abortion. So he could come and go as he pleased and like poison these women who wanted an abortion, knowing that they didn't tell anybody who was coming to see them or why. So he could just get away with it because
like there's no accountability.
Yeah. So he would, but yeah, people.
Because at first I thought he was just like a fake doctor, but no,
he's a doctor. He went to medical school. He wrote his whole thesis on chloroform. Although I think it did say that there was a photo of him in medical school, and I think it said that he was a fine student. Like he wasn't anything great. He wasn't like a genius, but he was like. He wasn't horrible.
Right. No, he tried. They made a point of saying that he wasn't a great student, but he graduated.
He graduated.
That's all you need to know about him.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like this guy is he's so
on top of the sloppy killing, like with the blackmail and the handwriting sample, he also revealed details of several women and like their cases that only the killer would have known. Which once again, the detectives just. I guess they didn't realize that at the time when they were reviewing these letters, but it's just all around so bad. So basically around chapter 19, he's remarried. So many ladies are dead. And they catch him on this handwriting sample. And Anderson is sent back to America, I believe, to follow like any traces.
Yeah, it's Jarvis and this other guy. Yeah. To like follow.
And now we're back in time in the past and seeing what's up with him.
So he just
and how he got
killed
to be
his
this
wife.
way.
So that's where
Flora Brooks, which again sad, and that dad is probably like,
kill me.
It's like nothing worked out.
Because I think she had sent him a package. Flora had sent Cream like a letter or package or something when he was in London, and he didn't really. I don't think he ever acknowledged it. Because he literally left like the next day or like a few days after they got married, and then she sent him something, and he was just like,
never,
whatever. And then he started
bigger and better things.
Then he just randomly started sending her like poison, and she was taking it, and they were like, so tuberculosis then.
Which once again, I'm just like, how are people in general? I'm like, Cream was not. It's not like some serial killers like Ted Bundy who are like well liked, and you're like, I could never believe that. With
this guy's an animal.
Like, he was disgusting.
Like men didn't even like him. No one liked him.
So the fact that
his family didn't like him.
He was so sloppy, and he still, right now, I guess, is caught, but not even for the murders.
Well, once again, it was the thing about the police departments just not communicating. Like a neighborhood over, because they had Scotland Yard for neighborhood A, and then they had Scotland Yard for neighborhood B, and most of his murders happened in neighborhood A. But then they had one murder in neighborhood B,
And they just didn't connect.
and
the
they just
dots.
didn't connect the dots because they just don't talk to each other.
They think it's too different. I'm like,
So,
okay,
neighborhood
y'all
B-
are separated by a few miles, but
Neighborhood
no
B is
communication.
like, wow, we have a killer on the loose. Neighborhood A is like, wow, we have a
we
killer
also
on
have
the
a killer
loose.
loose. Two different killers.
Two different killers, but they didn't even tell each other that they had two different killers. They just were like, oh, I don't know
got
what
a killer
neighborhood
to
A
deal
is
with.
doing over there. That's fun.
Which again still
Like,
happens to this day, but
yeah.
it's just to the umpteenth degree.
It's like communicate. Like,
and it's just
yeah. So I'm like, if y'all would have communicated and like shared the information across all of London and not just kept it in Scotland Yard A, then maybe
who are the worst characters for you? Is it the doctors? Is it the detectives? Is it who are more at fault? The
like who
doctors
botched
or the
this?
detectives?
Okay, there's actually an interesting chapter that I read
and here
in
they talk about
in
that?
the second part.
Okay.
That they talk about the role of, and it's really interesting, but it's also really like, are you stupid? Like, it's that should not be the focus of this. But in general, in the 19th century, the role between coroners and the police, and how coroners were actually like the end all be all, not the police for half of these things. So if the coroner said, this is what happened, the police would be like, okay. Because the coroner is the one who determined the cause of death. So police investigative work wasn't very investigative in the sense of like forensics.
Right, like if we don't receive a favorable answer from the coroner, then it's all done. Our job is done.
Yeah, so
maybe
that
at
goes
the end of this book we can determine after hearing
Yeah.
how everybody who botched.
But I
theirs.
think it began with them botching the first woman.
Yeah.
What's her name?
because that was
About being like,
Ellen
oh,
Donworth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about them being like, well, our
Alcohol.
coroner is busy right now, so bring in this idiot and he'll tell you what happened. And the guy was like, I don't know.
because then
alcohol.
you have no paperwork
The
that people can
paperwork-
reference. You know, when you're trying to connect the dots, if
Well,
there's
'cause
not
she's-
even a dot,
because she's
what are
not
you
even
supposed to connect?
she's not considered a victim,
Right.
So
She's
that
a
means
death.
that quote unquote Cream never killed anybody. That's not his
Exactly.
first victim. His first victim is the next person.
And mind you, here we don't have any communication between A and B, but imagine between like Lambeth and America.
In Quebec City, because
So that's why
killed,
we sent Anderson.
Yeah, that's why they sent the investigators to go
Because
there and
They're
figure out
completely
stuff.
like
And he would
drowning.
report back to London. But the other thing that was really confusing to me, that this comes up in the second part as well, that there's a London, Quebec as well.
yes,
So I was just like, okay.
because
And there's also a
he's
Lambeth.
Scottish Canadian, and they talk a little bit about his childhood
Yeah.
and his dad and their
I think his childhood
upbringing.
was like relatively normal.
Yeah, I know.
Like
and
his
Mary
family
Cream was like, yeah, my brother was a little bit weird.
He's a little freaky.
Um,
But yeah, but there's there's a London in Quebec.
Yes.
And there's also a Lambeth neighborhood in London in Quebec. So there's like, but then he went to London, actual London, England, and lived in Lambeth. So
Yes.
it's like so many different of the same names. But yeah, he killed in Canada, he killed in America. Where I stopped, he's on his way to Chicago. And then obviously he killed in
Dude.
England. So,
Went all around the world.
and where
Because
this
it just
started is when he was getting out of the Illinois State Penitentiary.
penitentiary.
So I'm assuming maybe this is
we
where
have to go.
he's-
Yeah, we're all around, but it's quite the journey, and I'm not bored. I thought I would be bored with a historical,
It's all
nonfiction.
interesting. Yeah.
um,
It's all good though.
and
It's-
again, all those themes on top. I'm curious what other new ones introduced, like the coroner versus the.
that was
the
interesting.
Police. I can't wait
And
to
how-
read that.
People were getting so butthurt over like the coroner and the police were like, "Ugh, but I think that should be my job." And I'm like, maybe you should like solve crimes.
You know,
like
what, you know what
maybe,
should happen? I hope Dr. Stevenson takes over and it's like, let me taste everybody's bodies,
dude,
and
he's
he would solve the
like
case.
he's so like bad in the good way, like Michael Jackson bad. Like he's bad. Like he's
That was
he's hardcore.
the most disgusting chapter, but also the most enlightening. I'm
He's like, you
this
guys
man
can
is trying
stand
to
over
help.
there and argue. I'm gonna taste this acid.
I thought you would.
You thought I was gonna say ass. Acid. Maybe he did that too to determine like what's going on. What'd she die from?
End the episode.
Ended there.
Ended
there. But
Stop the cameras.
yeah, dude. It's like
So
I don't know what else he
we're
did.
still on this
He's my
journey
favorite
of
character.
discovery. He is.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite?
Kareem being like, here's my handwriting. That's my favorite.
That's your favorite part. Is he your
Um,
favorite character though? Person?
Honestly, up to unless there's something more than Dr. Stevenson, I've had disappointment on all other
Okay.
fronts.
Yeah, he was
Okay.
the top.
Everybody else is an idiot.
Just wait till the next
the main
historical-
character is all the work that's being done in your apartment right now.
Dude.
It literally is coming from like above
It's
us,
coming
below
from
us.
everywhere. And no one even lives above me.
Eventually, somebody's gonna come into your apartment and be like, "I need to do some work here."
I need to drill through the wall in order to attach this. I'd be like, okay, that's, you know what? I'm not surprised. Yeah, it's coming from all around. It's really annoying.
It's okay. Next week there should be less cacophony.
We'll see. Maybe not. Maybe they'll be here
And the
forever.
end of, and to see how what smart individual or like average intelligence individual catches on to Cream's nonsense.
I don't know.
I'm just glad I don't think he kills with ointment anymore. And that I can say strychnine.
He doesn't use ointment. He uses strychnine, yeah. Which is like rat poison. That's what he used to kill rats.
He was like, let me give you some medicine.
He's like, come here, rat. Kill you. Strychnine. Take this pill.
I hope that next week you have some more impersonations.
This is how I like process information.
You're like rat.
This rat. Yeah, dude. I don't know. He's wild. He's probably one of the sloppiest serial killers
that you've like, and you've seen a lot. And
I've seen a lot.
We've seen a lot of sloppy ones too. But this guy is just.
Like I would say
you could be part of this time and still do it. So like, if he just didn't give a handwriting sample, we might have an unsolved case.
Yeah.
So
he might be a Jack the Ripper number 2. Jack the Ripper was...
He tried to be Jack the Ripper.
He tried, but Jack the Ripper was like not sloppy. I mean, he was sloppy in the way he did it, but... Oh, camera said bye. But he wasn't...
He got scared of Jack the Ripper.
Got scared of Jack the Ripper. Yeah, so I don't know. But this guy's... Yeah, he's just kind of an idiot. Kind of sloppy. But you know what? He's also just relying on the fact that everybody around him is like pretty unaware of everything that's going on. Like, you can rely on other people's ignorance to just, like, you don't have to be super clean with the way you do things and super secretive because people are just so unaware.
I like that.
It's like when someone breaks into your house in the middle of the day. They know, like, half the time, oh, they live in the neighborhood, like, no one's looking because all these people are just so unaware of their surroundings.
I mean,
so
you'll never catch me in Lambeth, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I wonder if Lambeth is still, like, a...
like Dr.
neighborhood,
Cream was here,
or if they like renamed it, or if it's a different district now. I don't know anything about.
I'll do
London.
some more research for part 2.
Maybe they have a whole Cream museum.
He might be let go like Ted Bundy was. So you have to catch next week to see how they end up.
Well, Ted Bundy escaped.
Stop it.
He did.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Well, he's dead now.
Okay. Hey.
Okay. She's scared of Ted Bundy.
A little bit.
Yeah.
No, okay. Cream was no Ted Bundy.
No, Ted Bundy was pretty
intricate
in the way he did things.
Good.
Like even Jeffrey Dahmer, he was pretty sloppy at times, but not this sloppy.
Yeah, this might be the worst.
He's pretty bad.
Pretty bad. For having gone to medical school. But again,
yeah.
Maybe he was just high the whole time.
But it's interesting because he's like
functioning relatively well for being like his brain fried on opium. So
yes, but like he's a pretty like hands-off serial killer. Whereas like Jack the Ripper, he was called Jack the Ripper because he would literally rip open people, like once again prostitutes and sex workers. I think he killed 6 women, and he would literally like cut open their stomachs and like pull everything out.
Cream was like, "Here's a pill, bye bye."
Yeah, like he's just very like,
which is just like
he didn't watch them die.
I'm
it's
just
not
like
he watched.
You know what?
Them.
I wish I had a psychological report on all these people. So
maybe
somebody give me the deets and see like, did you have a problem or were you just a bad individual?
Didn't really have psychology in the 19th century.
Yeah,
it was called.
I want.
It was called. Oh, you don't seem well. We're gonna put you in prison.
Asylum.
Yeah, lunatics.
Or if people thought they were crazy, they weren't.
You know a practice that like, they would have women do. I talked about this one. This is a tangent, really fast. But I talked about this in one of my classes, one of my literature classes in school. It was like 19th century lit. I love the 19th century. It's like so insane. But like one of the things we were reading a story about, it might have been The Yellow Wallpaper, but by I think that's Perkins Gilman. But one of the practices they would have women do when they thought women were like depressed, or they didn't really say depressed, but they were going through it. They would put women on bed rest. I don't remember the term for it, but it would be bed rest where they would put the woman to bed for like weeks at a time until she came out of her quote unquote depression.
Like that.
So much so, it's not like they were like, okay, we're gonna put you on bed rest for 8 hours and like you kind of do your own thing. You have a day off. It was literally like, if you need to roll onto your side, don't move. We'll get someone to come do it for you. And they were pretty much just like captive in their own bed. And someone would come over and she'd be like, "Doctor, I need to turn over." And he'd be like, "Okay." And so like, they would literally like turn the woman over. I'm so serious. It sounds so ridiculous, but this is like, and they thought this
Doctor,
worked.
I need to turn over.
Doctor, I need to turn over. And he'd be like, "Okay." And they'd like push
I
her.
would end up more depressed by the
exactly.
end of that.
And that was kind of the
They're
point
like, "I'll fix it."
of the story we were reading. But ladies. Yeah, they were like, "Oh, she's insane. She needs to just be on like forced bed rest for like weeks." And that's what they would do in the same room. And you could not do anything. You weren't allowed to do anything. And they would like put like, it was just wild. Like they put like the sheets around you so you couldn't move. And if you had to move, you need to tell somebody. Like it's who thought this would come to be a good thing? Like, and so finally at some point in the 20th century, they were like, this isn't working. Let's stop doing it. Like just insanity. But that's the kind of stuff that this 19th century world that this guy is living in
right now.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
So take it from there, and it can only go up. But it's just so these Coopers and Stevensons. That's
Stevenson's my favorite.
They all live in this world, and Cream is like, let me take advantage of this right now.
It's almost like he's like a 21st century man being like, these people are idiots. Let me take advantage of the 19th century.
And he's having some fun, but hopefully he has less fun in the second half of the book.
He's such a freak. He's such a freaky deaky guy.
He is.
Like, who gives someone a pill and just is like, oh yeah, they're gonna die later tonight, but I won't see it, but I'll still get off on it. Like, who does that? Like, at least with serial killing, it's hands on. It's like, okay, they're getting a thrill from killing someone. Like, but he doesn't see it.
It's more like understandable and like how somebody's brain works. Yeah. Like you can see, like, okay, they're obviously damaged, so they get some sort of.
Not that we're trying to justify serial killing.
We're not like, saying that. But yes. Not that it makes more sense, but like, okay, you have a mental issue, and this is where we're at because of it. But with Cream, I'm like, maybe drugs just damage his brain so much, and maybe we're gonna get at some point in his childhood, he had a bad experience with a woman or with a sex worker or with something that made him think women. Like, no, I'm gonna kill women. Even though I might have banged them like an hour before, I'm going to kill them now.
That's like
give him a little pill. Like a hate and it's not even like, again, to the point where you have to be hands-on about it. He's like, since I'm so smart and I'm a doctor, I can do it like this. And that's like, you wouldn't see it.
Yeah, you're not.
Sometimes with these people, like they want to see the person suffer or whatever, but no,
you're not
it's just
seeing
like,
the results.
He's just like, here's your prescription.
And it's just
go
killing
to the pharmacy.
them.
You can't go to the pharmacy. Here you go.
Yeah.
Immediate treatment.
Yeah, because doctors would just carry around.
He would like,
no, he would just leave. It's not like he's watching them die.
He never saw the person actually. Like,
I wonder if they'll have like an interview later where he's like, maybe he'll testify if he goes to trial or like why.
And he's like, I really thought I was like giving the medicine.
Idiot.
I don't think he would say that, but at this point, I think
it's just so wild that they had like.
I want his wife to be in court, Laura.
Oh yeah,
and be like, hello.
So if she survives, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, dude, there was that other chapter that talked about how people got medication and how. With poison, that was the other thing that was so stupid. Oh, the arsenic, because they had a whole log.
People were like, okay, people are ending up dead because they're poisoning, so we're gonna have a log of who takes what and where does it go.
Yeah,
and they're like, we're so smart, but then we have doctors who just had access to this stuff.
Yeah, because they would get orders from other people, and I think he applied for a job to be a distributor of different poisons in London, England, from some guy in America. And the guy was like, no thanks. I don't need you doing that. But he was like, still, snap. He was like, dang it. Because he just wanted to get the poison.
The drugs.
But yes, the fact that they had to come up with this, because people were like poisoning was like in fashion.
Yeah.
People loved it. You know, it was like the new thing.
A new thing.
Because you could kill
like
someone
TikTok,
without,
poison.
Yeah. It was like, TikTok? No, poison. Arsenic. So instead of like, you know, getting your hands dirty and killing someone and being like, oh, well, obviously it was you who did it. You have blood on your clothes. They could just poison someone and be like, I don't know what happened.
Nobody would be the wiser.
So arsenic was like super popular. And so, so pharmacies started having logs like, okay, this person came in and bought arsenic. I'm going to write your name down. You bought it on this day.
And how much.
And how much you bought and why you bought it. And they caught this one lady because she kept on saying she was poisoning rats or something. And her husband and like all her kids were like freaking dead. And they were like, well, you're obviously not doing that. So they cut her off, dude. Too late, but they cut her off. The system's flawed.
The way people thought they were being so smart. They're like, we solved the problem.
But by the time, but it's too late. By the time, it's like, okay, so write my name down that I bought arsenic today.
Imagine how many more wives didn't kill their families.
But it doesn't matter because it's like, once your family's dead, like, okay, if I go in, this is at the 19th century, it like doesn't make any sense. They thought they were doing something and it's like, you didn't do anything. So, okay, I walk into a pharmacy. I want to buy arsenic to poison my family. The guy at the front counter says, what do you need arsenic for? And I say, to kill my rats or whatever, because that's what they would use it for.
It is how much I need. It's a lot of rats.
How much I have 200 rats, dude. I have a rat problem. And because it's the 19th century and we live in London, of course I have a rat problem. So the guy's like, the pharmacist is like, okay, write your name down. I'm going to record how much arsenic you bought and the amount and what day and blah, blah, blah. Great. I leave. I kill my family. And the pharmacist says, Interesting. Well, good thing I have her name recorded here. What does that do? I mean, I guess it could lead you to the killer, but it's like, well, yeah, we already knew that, dude. Her whole family's dead except her. And she cooks their food every day. Who else would it be? But the pharmacist is like, I got the log. She bought it here.
I can't wait to hear how many other flaws
Doesn't make
there are.
any sense. Anyway.
They do be acting like they've solved the
And
problem.
they're like, don't worry, because we have a log of who
it's
bought
like, I
arsenic.
measured the bones. This is like,
I measured
100%. We will catch this
I
person.
measured the bones of the guy who was 15 at the time of the murder, and now he's 25, and we can't find him.
And
based off
you
his
could have changed your
records.
name, and that would.
Yeah, and it's like, well, dude, maybe because he was an adolescent at the time.
They didn't put those.
Yeah,
They
they
didn't
didn't
connect
have fingerprints.
They didn't
yet,
connect
but-
that. They didn't have fingerprints yet.
So I
all
guess
useful
that's
things, but
just
that just didn't
hilarious.
exist. But
It's brilliant.
Creams right now, still kind of on the loose, because I doubt that there'll be another half book of him just in jail. But maybe that's what it is. I don't know. And next week we're gonna bow tie it all up, nice and pretty.
I hope it's pretty because I don't know. I feel like this book is going to
Stevenson's
end
gonna taste
with
some more
like,
stuff. A bad, yeah.
It's going to end with Stevenson like
Ew.
tasting
Cream.
in court. Like, that one's a little chalky flavor. Let's try this one.
Oh, for sure.
That one's bitter almonds. That's arsenic.
Nasty. But it definitely a surprising read.
Yeah.
And that's me saying, like, I don't read a whole lot, and I don't think I would. And I chose this book. Don't ask me why.
Yeah, you
But,
literally chose it.
It's true crime. So I
I'm
guess
I'm
we're really
enjoying
in our
it.
true crime
Phase right
now.
You
So
are,
we
I
hope.
guess.
I guess I am too. I gotta watch. Jackson suggested this other show I want to watch about roommates or something.
Yeah.
But I'm a true crime junkie now.
Wow. Welcome.
It's addictive.
It is.
All right, everybody. Well, I hope you're following
That's all we
the
got.
journey with us.
Yeah. Go get this book by Dean Job.
Didn't you read another book, or you had seen another book by him? You've
No,
done
I
well,
haven't.
Job. We appreciate your
Thank
research.
Thank you, Mr. Job. Jobb. But I read a book by Eric Larson about H.H. Holmes in the White City. That was very good. Anyway, go buy that. It's called The Devil in the White City. If you like serial killers, once again, H.H. Holmes.
Maybe
he
that'll
was
be our next one.
Dude, he was like a crackhead. H.H. Holmes, he was a good guy. He was a good one. He did
guy.
good work. Just kidding.
Not bad.
He was also a bad person, but it's fine. All right. Well, follow us on _change_by_degrees on Instagram and
Our YouTubes.
Our YouTubes. Check out our YouTube if you want to watch us like a creep. Do that. Except sometimes the camera dies like a quarter of the way through.
Okay. It wasn't a quarter.
75%
It actually got. We just go. We go past an hour. No camera's gonna last like that. So
No camera.
no camera.
No camera's gonna last like that.
I need a little
We need
upgrade to
another
my setup.
one.
I do,
So
but
we can just.
it have to be a whole system.
Yeah, it's
Like,
too much. It's a lot of work.
we're not that popular.
No, we're not. So anyway, that's all we got. We'll see you next week when we finish this up.
Or rate us, because this was such a great episode.
Yeah, rate us.
5 stars. 5 estrellas. Maybe I'll teach you
That's
that
a lot.
word.
How do you wait? What?
5
That's 5.
estrellas.
I don't want to say that because
Okay.
it's hard. So I'm not going to do it.
Catch
'cause
that
I'm-
next week.
I'm embarrassed. All right. 5 out of 5. Catch us next week.
Hopefully this audio didn't crackle too much, because Gabby was roasting me earlier.
No, I just
so,
said like I heard some crackles in the last one.
There's some crackles.
Just a
So
little bit
there was no
crackles.
crackles. And
Maybe it's when I move.
Yeah, maybe you're causing it right now.
Do you hear
so
that?
Maybe you should
Is
start.
it crackling?
Okay, stop. Please stop.
This is a test for you.
Do you hear all the drilling's been
Yeah.
going on
All
for the past
right.
hour?
Let's just get out of here.
We'll end your torture and catch us next week for more of Mr. Cream. Dr. Cream.
It's Doctor, okay?
Dr.
Please
Cream.
put
He'd
some
be like,
respect
"Wait,
on his
I
name.
graduated.
It's
with
he has a
chloroform."
license.
You're right.
Doctor.
Wow.
Dr.
Blows
Thomas
my mind.
Neil Cream.
Stop
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Drilling. Just drilling in the
Stop
back.
it.
Okay. I wonder if that picked up like all the pounding.